Hi, everybody. Hope you're doing well. If you're watching this, that means we're at the end of week 3 of the fourth marking period of what you need to learn here in Survey of Math. We're going to continue here in this Unit 5, which again details things related to slope and all things equation writing with using slope. So this lesson here is going to review how to write equations in slope-intercept form. So we're going to go over some of the basics of that and review also point-slope form, which helps you write things in slope-intercept. So a couple of slides here. Again, like I always say, if you've got a general idea, maybe try an example, fast forward. If it matches up, awesome. If it doesn't, then obviously watch and make sure you get the explanations that you need. So slope-intercept form, you've seen it 18 billion times. Y equals mx plus b. We know m is a slope. We know b is the y-intercept. So we're going to look at two versions of this. We're going to look at the easy version where if I give you the slope and the intercept, they make it really easy to write the equation. So if I give you a slope of 2 and an intercept of 5, to write an equation, all I have to do is plug and drop the numbers in. Y equals 2x plus 5. Same thing if I give you a slope of negative 1/4 and an intercept of 8. All I got to do is plop them in. Y equals, let's write that a little bit neater here. Y equals negative 1/4 x plus 8. Even if both are fractions, no, we don't like fractions, but you can still write an equation in slope-intercept form with them. Again, if my slope is 5/3, my intercept is negative 2/3. Again, we plug the numbers in where they're supposed to go. Y equals 5/3 x minus 2/3. Super easy if I give you both those things, right? Well, we know that's not always the case. Typically, when it comes to writing the equation, you probably will be given the slope, but you might not be given the intercept directly. So when you don't have the intercept given to you, you're going to have to find it. The way that we go about finding it is using the point-slope formula. Because as you've learned in Algebra 1, point-slope leads directly to slope-intercept. So you can see the note at the top here of the screen on this slide here. If given a point and slope, or 2 points, so either of those combinations, start in point-slope form. So y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. M is still your slope. The y1 and the x1 come from the point. X and y stay blank. Those are your placeholders to represent all the possible points that would be part of that equation. Okay, so we're going to start from here with the setups that I'm giving you, and then we'll convert these to slope-intercept form. So one combination could be, here's a slope of 5, but here's a point, 1, 3. So this is the easier of the combinations here because you're actually giving the slope right off the bat. If you have the point and the slope, you can go right into point-slope form. So again, here's my formula. All I'm going to do is then pop the numbers in where they're supposed to go. So my y1 is 3, m is 5, my x1 is 1. So my equation would be y minus 3 equals 5 times x minus 1. Now this in itself is a fine equation, but ultimately it's not very user-friendly for when you do graphing or if you're using it in a word problem or anything like that. This is why we convert these to slope-intercept form. To remind you how to do that, it's going to take 2 steps. First thing you're going to do is distribute. I want to get rid of that set of parentheses. So we're going to distribute the 5 to the x minus 1. So we have y minus 3 equals 5x minus 5. Then get the y by itself, because that's how we make slope-intercept work. Add 3 to each side. Y equals 5x minus 2. And that is your equation in slope-intercept form. So again, point and slope, plug it into point-slope form. You'll distribute and then get the y by itself to make slope-intercept form happen. I wouldn't say more difficult, but the version of this that takes a little bit more work is like numbers 2 and 3. If I give you 2 points, doesn't mean you can't do anything with it, but as you remember from the last lesson and in general, if you have 2 points, you can find the slope. So, if I find the slope first, again, slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So 8 minus 5 over 6 minus negative 3. So I'm going to call it 6 plus 3. This will get me 3 over 9. Always reduce to 1/3. I'm going to take that slope and one of my points and start writing an equation. So again, point-slope form. As you may remember, it technically does not matter which point you use. However, I would just go with the one that's labeled x1, y1, just because. So, my y1 is 5, m is 3. Now my x1, be careful with this. So, x1 is negative 3. You could technically write this as x minus negative 3, but you're probably going to make a mistake if you do that when you start manipulating the equation. So instead of writing x minus negative 3, I'm going to go ahead and write it as x plus 3. So now I'm going to go ahead and distribute. So I'll get y minus 5 equals 1/3 x plus 1/3 times 3 is 1. And then add 5 to each side. Get y equals 1/3 x plus 6. And there's my equation. 3 is going to be the same idea. If I got 2 points, I'm going to go find the slope of it first, and then write my equation from there. So y2 minus y1, 5 minus 4, over x2 minus the x1, 3 minus 1. Gets me a slope of 1/2. So again, we're going to go to the point-slope form. Y minus y1 is 4 equals 1/2. That's my m. Parentheses x minus the x1, which is 1. I'm going to go ahead and distribute. Y minus 4 equals 1/2 x minus 1/2. It is okay if you get a fraction as your intercept. There's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't necessarily mean that you did it wrong. I'm not sure necessarily on the IXL if you'll get any like that. But again, it can certainly happen. I add 4 to each side. We'll get y equals 1/2 x plus 7/2. And that'll be my final equation. So ultimately, there's your little review there on how to write an equation in y-intercept form. If it's super easy, like the first slide, you might see a couple where it's just here's a slope, here's an intercept, just go plug them in. Most of what you'll probably deal with, though, are like these 3 examples on this slide, where you might have a slope and a point, or you might have 2 points where you'll have to work this through. So I would suggest here, have maybe a couple of these examples handy as you're working through the IXL, just so you have a nice point of reference. I would definitely suggest maybe at least copying these formulas down also so you have them handy. IXL that goes with this, again, remaining in level K, we're looking at S9. Again, we want to take that to an 80, so make sure that you do that. Again, if you have any questions on anything, send me a message on Schoology, shoot me an email, or stop by during my office hours. Otherwise, stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you next time.